This week on MCrider, I thought I would answer some questions that viewers have left in the comment sections of a few of the recent videos. So I'll answer questions on riding techniques, trikes, riding gear, and I'm going to save one question till the end that I've been asked more than any other question, I think, since I've started MCrider, and I started getting that question very early on in the production of MCrider. We'll save that one for last. In fact, I've been asked that one so often that I created a dedicated video on that subject, and some of you probably already know what I'm talking about. But if not, stick around till the end, and you'll find out what the one question is I've probably been asked more than any other here on this channel. I taught motorcycle safety in New Jersey for 6 seasons. A lot of the rider coaches would say we wear black. I always disagreed with that. What do you think? Well, I definitely think that high-vis gear helps. You know, how much it helps, I really can't quantify that. But I do think every little bit helps, and I think wearing highly visible gear, you know, whether it's high-vis clothing or just something that really contrasts with the background, I think that does help. You know, that being said, I buy most of my gear at Moto Liberty in Dallas, and if I'm looking at a jacket and it fits me right and something that I like, and they've got it in a high-vis option or something with bright colors on it, I'm going to wear that. I've tended lately to get away from high-vis gear just because it seems to fade so quickly out in the sun, and it goes from a high-vis to a dull yellow, you know, after a couple of riding seasons at most, and then I don't know how much it really helps then, but I think it does help more than wearing black gear, obviously. But I think more than that, adding extra lights to a motorcycle is going to provide you some extra protection or visibility over wearing just high-vis gear. I think a white helmet or a bright-colored helmet is probably the best option because that's the highest up and it's the most visible probably to cars when you're riding towards them, especially if you're on something like my Indian Challenger. It's got the big fairing. Most of your gear is covered up anyway by the fairing of the motorcycle, but a helmet that's a bright color is going to make a bigger difference, I think, than a high-vis jacket or pants or something like that. But I won't ever discourage someone from wearing it because I think that every little bit helps, and if that, you know, boosts your safety by 2%, then it may be worth looking into and investing in. If we have to do an emergency braking on a surface which has sand or a surface on which the tires are going to get very less traction, then what should be the approach? How should we use our brakes and why? Well, the simple answer to that question is if you don't have traction, you're not going to have brakes. And I learned that firsthand that when I was exiting a highway, you know, this was a few years ago, it had just started raining, and what I didn't realize was I was near a landfill, and a lot of trucks were coming out of that landfill and bringing, you know, all of the goo and stuff from that landfill and depositing that on the road. And when I got there, I had zero brakes, combination of the wet weather and the stuff that was coming down out of the landfill. I have ABS. I was on my Indian Challenger. But what happens then, you squeeze on the brake and the tire is going to keep from locking up because that's what ABS does. But what it does is, doesn't matter how hard you squeeze at that point, if you're on ABS, you're not getting any brakes. It's going to just keep rolling. It's going to keep that tire from locking up. If I had not had ABS, what would have happened was it would have locked the tire up and I would have crashed. So ABS kept me upright and allowed me ultimately to avoid a crash, but it was, you know, a very fortunate situation. And my point there that I didn't have a crash because I ended up having to go off the road and was able to keep the motorcycle upright for where I chose to go off the road at. So the simple answer is if you don't have traction, you're not going to have brakes. So the key to that is, and probably my mistake, or definitely my mistake in the situation that I found myself in, was not accounting for the rain and not looking far enough up the road at that point to see the stuff in the road and adjusting my speed while I still did have some traction. So that's why head and eyes are so important, so that we can scan the road up ahead of us. We can see those hazards and we can make adjustments. Hopefully, while we still have some traction left, we can get the bike slowed down so we're in a better position to deal with, areas of bad traction further up the road. But honestly, if you find yourself in a situation where there is no traction, zero traction, you're not going to have brakes, the best option is to avoid that ahead of time by looking far enough up the road to see those before you get to them. I've been following you for a while. Why don't you put something up about trikes, like regular trikes and then Can-Am? It's great that you do motorcycles, but not everybody rides one anymore because they can't, because of health reasons, and they have to switch to a trike. Well, the honest answer to that is I've not spent much time on a trike. I rode a Can-Am one time on a demo ride for about 15 minutes. I've never been on a single front wheel, dual rear wheel type of trike. So because I don't have any experience with it, I'm not qualified to teach it, and therefore I don't. What do you say to Jerry Palladino? Ride like a pro. He says use both brakes until the last part of the stop when you squeeze the front brake only, and remove your foot from the rear brake so you can place both feet on the ground the moment the bike comes to a complete stop. Well, my answer to that is Jerry Palladino is wrong. No, Jerry Palladino has a different technique. There are a lot of times where people do things in a different way. It doesn't mean one is right and the other one is absolutely wrong. It's different techniques. I know a lot of motor officers, Jerry Palladino is one, are trained in the way that he teaches to ride. I know for a fact that the moto officers here in the Texas area, at least the ones that I've spoken to, use the rear brake all the way through the stop and put their left foot down. Now for me, that depends. Most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, I put my left foot down only, keep my right foot on the rear brake, with the exception if I'm on my Indian Challenger. Sometimes if it's windy or if the road's uneven or I'm having particular knee problems that day, I'll put both feet down. But I would say 90% of the time, I'm putting just my left foot down and keeping my right foot on the rear brake. For me, that helps because I can watch the mirrors and I feel like I can get out of the way quicker. And I've already got my foot on the rear brake. If I need to make a tight turn, I can quickly go, clutching the friction zone, dragging a little bit of rear brake, and I can make tighter turns from the stop without having to rush to get my feet back on the pegs or the floorboards and on the rear brake. So it's beneficial to me, and that's why I do it, but it's simply a different technique, and I would encourage you to try both of them, find out which one works best for you, and start practicing and getting used to that and doing it out on the street. When doing an emergency stop, do I use the clutch? That's an interesting question, and the way I teach it is the way the MSF teaches it. You come to a stop in an emergency situation, you squeeze in the brake, you're downshifting, to get the bike into first gear as you come to your stop, and you're applying the front and rear brake with a progressive squeeze on that front brake until you get the motorcycle to a complete stop. That's how the MSF teaches it. That's how I have always done it. And there are a few benefits for that. One, when you do come to your complete stop, you're in first gear. If the car behind you doesn't come to a stop, you're ready to get, the bike is in gear, you're ready to get out of the way in case somebody behind you doesn't stop. I hear from a lot of our European viewers that they're taught to just squeeze on the brakes, don't worry about the clutch at all. It's okay if the motorcycle dies, just stop in whatever gear you're in. And, if the engine dies, the engine dies. And they also say you get some benefit from that because of engine braking. So you get some additional stopping power due to engine braking. I don't really see the benefit in that because I've got all the braking power I need with the front and rear brake. If I can lock those tires up at any time I want to, and I can on any bike that I own, then I don't need additional stopping power by using engine braking when I can lock the tires up and over brake with what I've got at hand. Plus, as I mentioned earlier, I see the benefit of having the bike in first gear when you come to a stop in order that you get out of the way. So what I teach, emergency stops, you squeeze in the clutch, you're downshifting, and by the time you get the bike to a stop, you want that clutch or the transmission to be in first gear, and you're using a progressive squeeze on that front brake with some light pressure on the rear brake to provide some additional stopping power. I'd need some scientific proof that your expensive helmet is ruined when you drop it. Are you in cahoots with the motorcycle distributors? Well, first of all, this is the video that you were referring to when you made that comment, and here's what I actually said in that video. But the general rule is if your head's in the helmet and it hits the pavement, probably need to replace it. If it's just a normal drop on the pavement, it's probably going to be okay. So as you can see from what I said, just dropping your helmet, to me, it doesn't damage the internal linings of it. And I'm not willing to give you scientific proof because I don't want to drop my expensive helmet in a controlled environment and we can see if it does any damage or not. But what I said in that video is if you drop your helmet, just dropping it without your head in it, it's probably not going to do any damage to the liner. If you've got the weight of your head in it and you even have a slow speed crash where you fall over, the helmet is going to do what it's designed to do, and that internal foam layer is going to compress, creating a weak spot in the helmet. That I do believe that if the weight of your head is inside that helmet, that you have created a weak spot in that helmet. Typically, if you just drop it, if it falls off the side of your motorcycle, you're carrying it and you drop it, it's not going to do that, and it probably doesn't need to be replaced. Can you do effective trail braking with interlocked brakes like on a Harley touring bike? The short answer to that is yes. You can effectively trail brake with interlocked or linked brakes, whichever one you want to call it, because by applying the brakes, you're allowing weight to transfer to the front of the motorcycle. That's typically done with the front brake, but even if you apply a rear brake, you're still transferring some weight to the front of the motorcycle. And same situation, if you've got linked brakes and you apply just the front brake, but the motorcycle's applying some rear brake, you're still transferring weight to the front of the motorcycle. You're compressing the forks, and that's what you're looking for to effectively trail brake. So don't let the technology of your motorcycle, that linked brakes or interlocked brakes, affect trail braking, because they have very little impact in doing it correctly and doing it safely out on the street. And here's the one question I get more than any other here on the channel, and I've been getting this one from day one. Hey, do you have a glass eye? Well, the short answer to that is no. No, I do not have a glass eye. If you want to see the longer answer to that and hear my story, then you can watch this video right here where I talk about my background and a little bit of history about myself and how this eye became dilated the way it is. But here's a simple clue for you if you still don't believe me. Glass eyes don't do that. This eye still moves around. So no, I don't have a glass eye. But watch this video if you want more information on that subject. So I hope you enjoyed this question and answer session here on MCrider. If you've got questions, leave them in the comments and maybe we'll pick them up in a future video. Till next week, guys, it's Kevin with MCrider, and I'll see you on the road. There's a whole lot more to MCrider than just the weekly videos. Go to mcrider.com/member. You'll get instant access to the forums and the field guide. You get ad-free MCrider videos and a whole lot more. Go to mcrider.com/member for all the details.